Well, welcome everyone. Friday morning. It went from blistering hot to chilly out here. It's in the I think I checked it was about 62 degrees. And that feels cold to me now. I've gotten used to 80 and 90 degree weather with a lot of humidity and got to where I was halfway comfortable with that, and now the chilly wind is blowing out here. But it's still beautiful here in North Carolina. And welcome everyone. Well, there's a lot going on. I haven't done a video in a couple of days, and there's a lot going on. Let me begin with this out of Isaiah 48:22. Do you remember when the mantra cry was "No justice, no peace"? Everybody, they'd march and "No justice, no peace." This verse popped out at me and really, utterly destroys that no justice, no peace concept from a biblical viewpoint. This verse says, Isaiah 48:22, that there is no peace, saith the Lord, for the wicked. There is no peace, says the Lord, for the wicked. Well, harassing people, creating crime or committing crimes, or being violent toward people, that is not justice, and that is not peace. And there are consequences for actions, and this is what the verse is telling us. The wicked are never at peace. And the thing that we need to remember and understand about the deep state and the New World Order and Klaus Schwab, George Soros, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, Yuval Noah Harari, uh, all of the deep state players. You've got the people that people love to worship, and that's the stars. The Hollywood stars. People get all giddy over Hollywood stars. So you have Oprah, you know, running her scam in Maui. And they could care less about the people in Maui. And did you see the video where she was fluffing the pillows and putting them under the guy? All that was staged. And someone was trying to talk with her and ask her a few questions, and she was pretty much ignoring that individual. It was all staged. These people are not happy. All of their riches, their millions and billions of dollars, it doesn't bring them peace. The only way you can have peace is when your soul is calmed and comforted. And the only time your soul is calm and comforted is when you face the issue of sin and you deal with that issue. And the only way to deal with that issue is through the cross of Christ. And those who are in Christ, they have peace. And they have a settled soul. And they have their alienation from God has been reconciled back to God. Their soul has been reconciled back to God through Christ and His sacrifice on the cross. So sin alienates us. I can't say alienate. This birth defect that I have makes it hard for me to pronounce certain words sometimes, so that's why that happens. Has nothing to do with intelligence. Some people think that if you stumble over words, that you have an intelligence issue. That's not always true. But we've been reconciled in our soul back to God Almighty, and so we could even go in and talk about Luciferian religion, Satanism, all that, but we're not going to go there. Let's get into the news for just a moment here. So just remember that verse as we go through everything. There is no peace, says the Lord, for the wicked. They don't have peace. And all of their power and their money will not bring them peace. But the believer in Christ has the peace that passes all understanding. All right. So there's been a lot going on. There's been Fannie Willis was basically rebuked by the trial judge in Georgia for trying to schedule all of these trials of all of these defendants in the Trump case so closely together. And basically the trial judge was asking Fannie Willis, what in the world were you thinking? we don't have the ability to do this. I mean, you're overwhelming the court, right? So there's some things going on there, and that whole thing it seems like it's going to be falling apart. So that's happening, and I'm going to call this the pushback, because there's a lot of pushback happening around the country. I attended a city council meeting last night here in our little city of Locust, a city of just shy of 5,000 residents and growing. They're putting in another 180 homes here in Locust. I think we're going to be a city of 10,000 by the time we are done. But it was refreshing to see people who are in elected office who are actual, real public servants. The meeting began with the mayor introducing or opening the meeting, and then we had a Pledge of Allegiance. And then the police chaplain, who I met last night, and we had a really good conversation, came up and said that we all bowed our heads, to those who wanted to bow their heads, and prayer was given for God's guidance in that city council meeting. Now, I know the ACLU would have had a heart attack right there on the spot if they had been in that meeting. But you know what, ACLU? You can go into the trash heap of history as far as I care, because you have done everything you can to tear this country down and to destroy it. So I could care less what the ACLU thinks, and I think that's the mood of the country right now. We want to get back to good morals, good ethics, and traditional values. People are sick of all this garbage that's going on in the country. And there is a lot of pushback. And by the way, I'm seriously looking at running for city council in the next election, because you can't let that slip. I think there's two who are vacating their seats. You know, they're gentlemen in their late 70s, early 80s. I think they're going to be bailing out and having their retirement. So I'm thinking of taking one of those seats. Because if we don't act, but all we do is complain, then what are we doing? What are we accomplishing? When you have the opportunity to serve in a capacity like that, then serve. You know, and instead of complaining about what the other guys do, well, that guy, he's not doing the right thing in office. He's not doing that city councilman, that county commissioner, or whatever. Well, then put your name on the ballot and run against them if you don't like what they're doing, right? So anyway, I'm gonna look through some of the news. I'm in the Epoch Times right now. And this reminds me, as I'm looking at this, the pushback against the Speaker of the House. Gaetz is really attacking against the Speaker of the House. I can't think of his name. And because the Speaker of the House, it's been, 8 months, and he's not done anything that he promised he would do. According to the agreement that they made when they elected him Speaker, And so there's a push. So Gates is pushing to have him removed if he doesn't get on the ball and do what he needs to do. So that's the only reason these impeachment proceedings are beginning against Biden, is because Gates and the Freedom Coalition in the House are pushing it and kind of forced the Speaker of the House into it. So I don't think they have enough votes to remove the Speaker of the House, but they are applying pressure. And so the pushback is occurring. I believe that as these elections continue and as the Freedom Caucus, if you will, or the MAGA movement continues to fill in the slots within the elected positions of the House of Representatives and the Senate, that you're going to see a seismic shift in how things are being done in Washington. And the days of frivolously spending money and pushing us further and further into debt are going to be gone. And there's going to be people held responsible for the things they do. I'm advocating for the removal, the defunding of a ton of agencies in the federal government, because most of those agencies have done nothing but to harass the people of America, the citizens of the United States, to harass our people, right? I remember a book that was written titled "To Harass Our People" years ago. I read it, and that was in the 80s, and that was a book about the IRS, but basically the concept was that these agencies, the only thing they're doing is harassing the American people. They're not doing anything productive. And so I think the pushback is coming. We just have to be patient and let it play out. All right. Let me see here. There's some stuff about the new pandemic in here. Saying that this upcoming strain, if you will, may place significant strain on the healthcare system. And this is the official narrative. And it's talking about the C-19 and the flu. And can anybody tell me the difference? I know some of you are going, what? What do you mean? They're not the same thing. Are you sure about that? We'll leave it there. Let's see. Some stuff about Hong Kong, was it? Some stuff about Belgium reviews iPhone 12 health risk after French sales ban. Well, I'm not going to go into all that, but we know that putting it up to a year is probably not the best thing, although I did that yesterday. This is the best way to do it. Some stuff about railroads. Let's get down here. The stuff that I saw earlier is not here now. They keep updating. And the news just comes in so quickly. Let's see. Former Border Patrol chief says agents can't vet illegals. There's such a flood of them, and from so many different countries, they're not able to vet everyone coming into the country. And that's a big problem for us. That we have to get a handle on that. I think we've got enough time for the next election. New York is complaining. The mayor of New York is just whining like a hurt schoolgirl. Nothing against schoolgirls. Just a phrase. You got to be careful. You could say the grass is green and offend somebody these days. Because, these people are ended up in New York in mass numbers. And now all of a sudden he's pro shutting down the border. Isn't it funny how that works? As long as it's affecting your neighbor, oh, that's their problem. I'm still for the thing that's virtue signaling. I'm for the virtue signaling thing that makes me look like a good person, even though we are wicked to the core in our hearts until we can know Christ. But when it affects us, all of a sudden, wait a minute now you're camping outside of my back door. Isn't it funny how the hypocrisy is so massive? Okay. This thing of the Texas AG Ken Paxton's impeachment is such a silly nonsense. There's a picture of Ken Paxton. It looks like he's in a legislative session or something, and he's just smiling and laughing. He knows this is nonsense, and it's not going to go anywhere. The deep state is just throwing everything they can at us. And because it seems to me that their plans are being so thwarted. Now think about it. If they could make an example out of a few people, hit them with social credit score, hit them with shutting down bank accounts, and so forth, and it scares all the rest of the people, then they can have control. But when they have a massive number of people, millions of people, that don't cooperate, trying to shut down millions of bank accounts won't work. These people simply pull their accounts and go somewhere else. And the second reason it won't work is it will shut down the bank. And so the only thing that the deep state would be doing at that point is shooting themselves in the foot. They'd be turning the gun on themselves and wounding themselves. And so it won't work. Their plans don't work when you have a massive backlash. And that's what they're having. They're having a massive backlash. And they are realizing that their plans are not going to be successful because of that. So they're trying to regroup. And there's folks, look, these type of people, they turn on each other. And so you have some that are going to be throwing everything they can at us to try and destroy us. And some that are going to go back to the drawing board. But they're going to end up fighting each other and trying to take each other down. Of course, remember, they're always about power and control. And they're not in unison. They're not always in unison, and so they do fight among themselves. They do, who's going to be the kingpin? I'm going to knock the other guy off so I can be on top. This is who they are. They're satanic. They're Luciferians. There is no natural compassion out of them. There is no love. They don't have any love for anyone. It's just all self-worship and Satanism. And so they will end up destroying themselves. Trump's Georgia election trial will not commence in October as they had planned. Probably sometime in 2024 that will begin. Maybe. It depends on when the judge decides to set it. The judge had also said in that case that Trump's Fifth Amendment rights were violated. Isn't that interesting? And all the other defendants, their rights were violated because they didn't have an opportunity for pre-trial, for discovery, all the different things that normally would go on in these type of trials. And the judge basically rebuked the prosecutors for violating their constitutional rights. So there is pushback. Something about California's electric. Let's see. 8 House Democrats joined with GOP to fight California's electric vehicle mandate. So there's pushback on this. All vehicles have to be electric by 2030. agenda in California. Now they're having pushback. 8 House Democrats broke ranks on Thursday to vote with Republicans to pass a bill that opposes California's environmental regulations mandating the purchase of electric vehicles. The Preserving Choice in Vehicle Purchases Act received approval from the House with a vote of 222 to 190, with 214 Republicans and 8 Democrats supporting it. And I just saw something where the House of Representatives in the Capitol, in the nation's capital, are pushing back, and they're going to try to get a ban on electric vehicle mandates. They want to ban electric vehicle mandates, so we'll keep an eye on that, see how that goes. There's a child sex trafficking bill. They cleared the legislature in California, heads to Newsom's desk, Governor Newsom. Following a lengthy debate in the legislature, the California Assembly passed a child sex trafficking bill September 11th, and the Senate concurred 2 days later, putting the bill one step closer to becoming law. The bill, it's a Senate Bill 14, authored by Senator Shannon Grove of Bakersfield. I've been to Bakersfield in California. It's out in the desert. She's a Republican. It makes child sex trafficking a serious felony and increases penalties for repeat offenders by making the offense a strike under the state's 3-strike system. Now, I thought they had 3 strikes when I was an police officer out there for a while, and that was a good thing. That was very effective in lowering crime rate. It really, and what 3 strikes is that 3 strikes and you're out. 3rd felony, you're going to prison for life, and that's what it was. And so maybe they must have brought it back. So I think what they did is they brought it back as it has to be a violent felony, 3 violent felonies, and you're going away for life. So the original didn't distinguish between violent felonies and felonies that are nonviolent. So I think there was an issue over that. But you can see there's pushback. Pushback is happening against what the deep state would rather, or the New World Order would rather us do. Of course, the Hunter Biden indictment, one charge, it's a gun charge, nothing on Burisma, which is a shame because Burisma is really where the meat of the corruption lies. So we'll see where that goes. Federal gun charges against him. 11th Circuit cancels Meadows' emergency hearing after state ruling slows down prosecution. So a federal appeals court abruptly canceled expedited oral argument set for September 15th in an emergency motion by former Trump aide Mark Meadows, aimed at staying a federal judge's decision to remain a racketeering prosecution to a Georgia court. So this thing in Georgia is really getting stirred up. I mean, if they thought this was just going to be a smooth sailing road to denying Trump the opportunity to be on the ballot for the presidential election, they were sorely mistaken. And there are people that out there that still think that Trump's going to go to prison. Now, people are really, really heavily gaslighted on this. Some people are. And they've never woke up to the fact that the news media has been lying to them. And then when Hunter Biden was was indicted, these same folks were in utter shock. And so the Great Awakening is very painful for some people. And they do go into utter shock when they learn that everything doesn't go the way they think it's supposed to go. So it's pretty interesting. The Supreme Court took an action. Supreme Court halts order blocking Biden administration's contact with social media firms. This government influence over social media and kind of bossing these social media companies around and saying, you will collect this data for us, you will do this, that, and other thing. Well, it's finally reached the Supreme Court. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito on September 14th temporarily placed a hold on a lower court ruling that restricted federal agencies from contracting social media firms with requests to remove content while the justices consider how to handle the case. His order froze a recent appeals court decision that found that federal officials likely violated First Amendment protections by coercing some platforms into deleting certain posts and content. A lawsuit was filed by Missouri and Louisiana last year against the Biden administration, accusing federal officials of trying to censor people with certain viewpoints. And there's more pushback. Now this one is interesting. Detransitioner sues doctors who cut off her body part at 16, right? To switch from female to male. Luca Hine, a young lady who regrets receiving a radical double mastectomy at the age of 16 to treat gender dysphoria. We have lost our minds, folks. We're living in an alternate universe from how God designed everything. It's just insanity that's overtaken our society in certain aspects of our society. Anyway, 16 years old, treated for gender dysphoria. Just make up any psychological concept you want and use it to push an agenda. This is what I'm seeing. Anyway, she's suing her physicians and the University of Nebraska Medical Center for damages. Pushback. At 16 years old, Miss Hine was a minor when physicians from UNMC surgically removed her body parts, 2 of them, as the first step in her so-called gender-affirming care. The inmates are running the insane asylum. Gender-affirming care. No, that's the alternate universe that's in Wacko Land. It's child abuse, is what it is. Per a lawsuit filed in the District Court of Douglas County, Nebraska on Wednesday, the Center for American Liberty Legal Organization on Wednesday accused doctors at UNMC of lying to Miss Helms, and her parents, and of hiding research that doesn't support the prevailing gender-affirming model of care for people suffering from gender dysphoria. Now, gender dysphoria is, gender confusion. They're saying a psychological problem. You know what it is? It's psychological warfare. It's mind manipulation and control. Right out of the Tavistock Institute, out of England, and when they started to develop mind control techniques for the CIA, for the MI6 and military intelligence, and they said this will work in affecting society, societal control. And so they began using that, and that's where a lot of this is coming from. So anyway, UNMC doctors deceived Luca and her parents with false promises claiming that if Luca did not undergo the removal of her 2 body parts, she would take her own life. Lies and deception. It's the opposite. Oh, she'll get depressed and take her own life. We have to do this. No, what happens? They do it and then they become depressed and suicidal. It's the opposite. Anyway, it says that they said she would take her own life despite medical evidence to the contrary. They were just pushing an agenda. And that's according to the Center for American Liberty. So UNMC also concealed scientific studies, kind of like they conceal scientific studies in other areas, like C19. Surgical transitions for minors. So UNMC also concealed scientific studies that do not support surgical transitions for minors, including studies showing transgender surgeries actually increase suicidality and psychiatric morbidity. So, yeah, so she's suing, and we'll have to see how this case goes. But they're pushing back, folks. This abuse occurred against them when they were young, and they didn't understand things. And as they're growing up, these victims, and they are realizing what happened to them, and they're understanding it, they're not happy. And so I have a feeling this could start if she's successful here, it's not going to be good for the medical centers around the country, because it could start a firestorm of lawsuits, and boy, they're going to have their hands full. They're going to have their hands full. You know, you reap what you sow. I don't believe in karma. That's a Eastern mystic or Eastern religion concept. It's a Hindu religion concept. That's a Buddhist religion concept. I don't believe in karma, but I do believe in the biblical principle of you reap what you sow, and that God holds us responsible for our actions. And God's going to hold these people responsible for their actions. Now the House, this is going back to transportation, House passes bill to prevent bans on gas-powered vehicles. The House of Representatives on September 14 passed legislation that would prohibit bans or limits on sales of gasoline-powered vehicles. Electric vehicles will be part of our energy matrix for a long time. No Republicans deny that. But government is trying to pick what you drive, America. Representative Jeff Duncan, Republican, South Carolina, said during an hour-long debate prior to the House vote. As part of that same debate, Representative Frank Pallone, a Democrat from New Jersey, said nobody is taking away your gas-powered vehicle. California is trying to do it. H.R. 1435, the Preserving Choice in Vehicle Purchases Act, was approved on a 222 to 190 vote. So that's fairly close vote, but that's a pretty good, actually that's a decent margin there. 222 to 190. Anyway, no Republicans voted against the proposal, while a few Democrats broke ranks to support the measure, which was introduced in the House in March. So we talked about this earlier, but now you know what it is. It was H.R. 1435. If you want to follow it through the legislature, it'll go to the Senate next, and they'll have to consider it. So the Republican-led push to protect internal combustion engines comes after the California Air Resources Board approved the measure that would prohibit the sale of gas-powered vehicles by 2035. The state must secure a Clean Air Act waiver from the Environmental Protection Agency, another agency that needs to go bye-bye. Just get rid of it. It's useless. All it's doing is making life harder for the American people. Anyway, EPA to proceed with the ban. So California already received a similar waiver from its ban on new diesel-powered heavy trucks that starts in 2036 and so forth. So, okay, so to understand what happened with California, and we'll end it there, and do a little bit of something out of the Psalms. They they trapped themselves into this years ago when they, as a state, separate from the country, bought into the Kyoto Treaty and other treaties, and they also have a treaty with, I think it's Ontario up in Canada, where they're they're sharing this environmental protection type of thing going on. They have the I can't remember what it's called, but where they you can buy the credits from the other company if you're polluting too much. There's a name for that agenda, and I can't remember what it's called right off the top of my head. But they bought into all that, and they brought that. They by legislature and the governor, they signed into this treaty with another city in Canada, and they bought into all the Kyoto Treaty stuff, and they kind of it's a something in trade. Where they have the carbon tax and all that. They have that going on in California now. So anyway, so they're locked in on these environmental requirements because they did it to themselves. Now the politicians who elected politicians did this to the Californians. I can tell you right now, most Californians, because I lived there for 38 years, and I still have close friends back there, they don't want this. They think this is insanity. And they're holding out and hoping that between now and 2030, 2035, that they're going to be able to get rid of it. And it's possible they could, but they'd have to, I don't know how they're going to get out of this treaty that they signed. California thinks that it's its own nation, the way it acts sometimes. It thinks it's better than the rest of the country as far as this, saving the planet and all that goes. And not all Californians, not the people of California, but the crazy elites of California, the nutty Newsoms of California, who are running things in California. They're the knuckleheads that are doing all this stuff. And so as we see California continue to commit slow suicide, because people are bailing out of that state, businesses are bailing out of that state, they can't afford to do business in California any longer. Pretty much every business in downtown San Francisco has closed down and is turning into a ghost town. You can't sustain this kind of thing. So, here comes pushback. And pushback in the form of California is people are saying, I've had enough and I'm leaving. And then some are saying, I've had enough and I'm staying and I'm fighting. And it's up to individuals' choices how they want to do that. But both are pushback. Both are forms of pushback. Let me go to Psalm 96 and give a little bit of encouragement, because Christ is still on the throne. God still runs his universe, and all of this garbage by the globalists and the New World Order and all of that, it's temporary. But God is permanent, and God's kingdom never ends. Psalm 96. Oh, sing unto the Lord a new song. Sing unto the Lord all the earth. Sing unto the Lord, bless his name. Show forth his salvation from day to day. Declare his glory among the heathen. And that's what we need to be doing, is declaring the glory of God among those who hate to hear that we're declaring the glory of God. Their reactions and their responses should not even affect our worship of God and our declaration of the glory of God one iota. We need to stop caring about what those who are enemies of God think about us when we are giving God glory. Why do we even care what they think? It's God that we please. Anyway, declare his glory among the heathen, his wonders among all people. For the Lord is great and greatly to be praised. He is to be feared above all gods. For all the gods of the nations are idols, but the Lord made the heavens. I saw a comment on, I clicked on a video the other day, and it was talking about the worst places to live in Tennessee. I grew up in Tennessee, so I thought, this should be interesting. I wonder, I wonder where those places are. I clicked it off when he kind of mocked Tennessee because they didn't want to teach evolution in school. Now, I went to high school in Tennessee. I graduated high school in Tennessee. They taught evolution. I mean, the Scopes trials were a long time ago, folks. But you know what? Darwin's dead, and so is his theory. I just went, you know what? I'm done with you, and I clicked the video off. Well, you're just dumb and ignorant if you don't believe in evolution. No, actually, you're way behind the times, and your science is obsolete if you actually believe in Darwinian evolution now. And I'm not talking about small changes within a species. I'm talking about from one species to the other. It's dead. Darwin is dead, and so is his theory. Because why? Because we understand DNA and RNA now. And it's far more complicated and far more integral than we ever thought it would be. And there are literal cities, biological cities and machines running around in the DNA and RNA, and information that requires intelligence. We're talking even beyond computer software. I mean, even more sophisticated than computer software running the DNA and RNA. It's even more. It's more than just ones and zeros, and you can't. There's no way that natural selection could do that, because when you say natural selection does that, you're assigning to natural selection an intelligence. That natural selection is some kind of a entity that has intelligence to be able to design this. But that's not what the evolutionists mean when they say natural selection. And so the theory is garbage. It's nonsense. I got off on that. But yeah, we shouldn't be teaching it in schools anymore because it's not even scientific. It falls into the realm of philosophy more than the realm of science. So we need to stop confusing philosophy with science. All right. Honor and majesty are before him. Strength and beauty are in his sanctuary. Give unto the Lord, O ye kindreds of the people. Give unto the Lord glory and strength. Give unto the Lord the glory due unto his name. Bring an offering and come into his courts. O worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness. Fear before him all the earth. Say among the heathen that the Lord reigns. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously. Let the heavens rejoice, and let the earth be glad. Let the sea roar, and the fullness thereof. Let the field be joyful, and all that is therein. Then shall all the trees of the wood rejoice before the Lord, for he comes to judge the earth. He shall judge the world with righteousness, and the people with his truth. The future's not bleak. The future is filled with hope. And so carry that with you today and this weekend. God bless, folks. I'll see you next time.